What is up, my loves? Welcome back to another episode of the Fully Alive podcast. My name is Stephanie Elsperman. I am your host. As always, I'm a coach, speaker, and entrepreneur, really here to revolutionize the way that you see purpose. So this is a space where we dive into all things high performer mindset, creating a life that makes you feel fully alive from the inside out, impact-driven entrepreneurship, and activating your soul's purpose so that you can truly live in alignment with the movement that you were here to make in this world. And today we're not really going to go into any of that because it's my birthday. And I'm releasing this on my birthday. I'm recording this 2 days before my birthday. And I wanted for this to be a little timestamp. And, there was totally a part of me that was like, you should just create a training that has so much value and the 3 tips to do X, Y, and Z. And I voiced that to Nolan when we were in the car this weekend going up to Newport because he took me on a little day trip up there to start off the birthday weekend. And he said, Steph, why don't you share value through your reflection? And it made me think how for eons and eons and eons, we have been transferring knowledge through stories and transferring wisdom through stories. And I'm not here to say that I have all of the wisdom in the world, but what I can tell you is my story and a few of the experiences that I've had throughout this year, and maybe in hopes that they will resonate with you. So today what we're going to be getting into is a little birthday recap, a little reflection, and I'm going to be taking you through the 4-part process that I use every single birthday to really reflect on this past year and to set intentions moving forward. It's actually a variation of something that I do every single New Year's, and my birthday just so happens to be almost smack dab in the middle of the year. So if you desire to use this as your own little midpoint reflection, I highly, highly recommend for this year, or if you happen to have a birthday coming up. Steal my process. It's wonderful, it's amazing, and it's awesome for really catapulting yourself into the next year and not discounting any of the lessons that this past year has actually given you. As far as plans for this birthday goes, this past weekend, we went up to Newport, Rhode Island, which now that we're on the East Coast, there are so many different little day trips here and there that we can take, which is just so fun. We were deciding between going into New York City or going to Newport. We ended up going to Newport, and Nolan just created the most incredible day. We went over to the Breakers. If any of you guys have heard of that, it's the most phenomenal mansion, like just insane craftsmanship. And then we had dinner and we came back, and Nolan just really, I have to give him so many props. He has such an incredible way of making me feel special on my birthday. It is something that brings tears to my eyes. I honestly feel like I'm on the verge of tears in this podcast episode because I don't know what it is about birthdays, but they make me so freaking mushy. And I think it's just because at this point in my life, I really am so proud and so grateful for the humans that I've chosen to surround me in my life, and just how much gratitude and celebration there truly is. And I don't know if any of you guys can resonate with this. I grew up trying to make my birthday the absolute perfect day. My recovering perfectionist is showing. And I would try and just bring in all of the things that felt the most important to me all on one day. And I always felt somewhat stressed on my birthday ever since, like, even when I was little, I felt stressed to like make it the perfect day. But I look around at life now, and between the people that are in my life, and honestly, it sounds so cheesy, but just like the life that we've created, I don't feel like there's this big rush to celebrate everything. Like, yes, I'm 110% the person who's like, for 2 weeks, we are celebrating my birthday. When we go out, it's to celebrate my birthday. Like, that's just how I like to roll because I think it's fun and I think it's beautiful. Again, my Leo rising might be showing just a little bit. I love to make a whole long celebration out of it because for me, it's just fun, but there isn't this stress. I'm like, when my birthday comes on Wednesday, when this podcast is released, I'm working. I have meetings all day on Wednesday, but then on the weekend we're going and we're traveling down to Florida to see my whole family. We're seeing Nolan's family. I get to see Miss Laura Martin, one of my dearest friends who you all know and love on this podcast, and we're going to go to a conference. And it's just going to be so much fun to be surrounded by people that I love. So that means that, Wednesday, there's no pressure, there's no rush. When you don't need an excuse to celebrate yourself, I feel like every single day becomes a celebration of life itself. And so I feel like birthdays just become this like immense puddle of gratitude for me of just this life and being alive and choosing to be alive in this life, and the people around me that really have gone above and beyond to make me feel special. But I also think it's because I treat myself special. It's like you teach other people how to treat you. And so, yeah, I feel really relaxed going into this birthday. And I'm so excited for this year ahead. In life, as I was saying, Nolan and I are celebrating 2 years in Connecticut. And there's just been this deep commitment and rooting of where we are. And my cancer self is super happy with that because I feel like I have a home and I get to create a home, which is so beautiful. And I think we have just created this really, really fun and beautiful launch pad to just dive in and be like, let's fucking go and let's build. And so life has been super, super rooted. So to take y'all through the 4-part process of reflection, baby. So it spells out the acronym TRIS, like we gonna go hit those triceps, TRIS, TRIS. And the first step is to create a timeline. And this is where you're basically going in and looking at what the heck happened. I personally like to take my phone camera roll because it's so easy to just scroll through every single month and be like, where did I go? What was I doing? Where was I at? What were the milestones I hit throughout this entire time? The second piece is to reflect. So to actually look and squeeze out what were the lessons, what were the biggest moments, the things that you're most proud of throughout that entire time. The third is to intend. So what are my intentions moving forward? What are the things that I want to set in motion? And the fourth is script. So actually writing out what I want this next year to actually be like, speaking that out loud to other people. You can have your own ritual around what you do with that, but really actually sharing it. I think sometimes it's a beautiful thing to keep it to yourself. It's also beautiful to share it with people who you really love and trust as well. So I'm going to take you through this process real time with me. So timeline, I'm actually not going to go that too deep into because I do have other podcast episodes just going into all of the events of this year. But if I really look back and just recap, let's say in business, the interesting thing looking back at this past year is, and that's different than in years past, is my numbers didn't necessarily grow astronomically if I look at like the number side of business, but my work deepened. Absolutely deepened. And that's something that I can really be so proud of myself for, and something that's alignment with my own mission. Y'all have probably heard me say this before, but it's like I see myself in this work for my entire life. Like I'm not going anywhere. Catch me on stage at 85. I will still be doing this work. Knock on wood. Hopefully I make it to that point. And I always say to my clients, it's like, if you were actually in this work for your life, what decisions would you make? How would you go in on your work? How would you deepen your entire process? How would you hone in on your own craft? And for me, this year was really honing in on my own craft, really starting to see what are the specific things that I do. One of my big things, especially, in this world of business, I started with coaching in life, mindset, and purpose specifically. And of course, the natural byproduct of all of that, once you find your purpose and you master your mindset, is then creating a business out of it. And I have happened to grow a business myself. And so I love getting to share with other people how they can grow theirs as well. But one of the big things when I started speaking on business for me was like, I don't want to, just be like every other person speaking on business saying, here's how to get your first 5 clients, or here's how to scale to X amount each month. And while some of that's really helpful because it does speak to actual desires and needs and it's helpful in marketing, I was like, there's something deeper. There's something deeper. There's something different that I'm here to bring. And I don't want to whitewash my own genius by just jumping on what works for everyone else. And I feel like this process throughout this year of deepening was really about looking at my own genius. Like, what is it that I bring to the table that is different and that I can see throughout, my life experiences, my skills, and my innate gifts that make me who I am and the key player of who I am. And instead of jumping ship on my own genius to follow what works or what other people have done, can I stay committed to my path and deepen and deepen and deepen in my own craft such that I carve out my own lane? And that's what I personally desire, and something that I'm so proud of within business. My relationships with my clients have deepened. My work and the programs that I've created have all deepened. And that's something that I can't wait to now grow from, that place of really knowing myself and really knowing my genius. I look back at years before, and, my little high performer can sometimes be impatient of like, all right, let's go, let's do the next thing, let's grow, let's grow, let's grow. But I look back and I'm so freaking glad that I took the time and had the patience to really get clear. And it will continue to get more and more clear as I go throughout my life, but to really get clear on my own specific genius in my work, which is really fun. So business wise, that's what's up. Personally, I don't know if I've shared that much about this on the podcast, but I have for years dealt with something called Epstein-Barr virus, which, if any of you guys have ever had mono, you might know what that is. But it's basically a virus that stays in your system for life. There's no known cure, in air quotes, because I like to think everything's curable at some point. But it's something that, I have always dealt with. Basically, if I get run down or if I get overstressed, I'll have these like flare-up symptoms that come in. And it's been something I've kind of been at odds with throughout my entire life. And for a long time, I was in the cycle of I would just burn myself into the ground and then get incredibly sick over and over and over and over and over. I did not know how to find my own middle ground and listen to my body. I was always like, God, I wish I could be the person who could just hustle and hustle and hustle and not ever have to take a break, and could just override my body and say yes to everything. And I realized very early on that I'm just not that person. And I feel like this year I have been the healthiest that I've ever been, which for me is such a huge fucking win. And that's why I want to voice it on this podcast, is such a huge win, because I've actually been in communication with my body. And I feel like I've actually started to have a relationship to understand what it means to listen to my actual body, what it means to take a break. And there are still times where I'm like, God, I wish I could just pull it out. I wish I could just, push another hour and do another thing. But there are times where I just have to shut it the freak down. Otherwise, I know that I'm going to get into a hole that's going to be really hard to come out of. So if any of you guys have, anything like chronic illness, I know for me, my version is not even, the craziest version of chronic illness out there. But if anyone has that, I so hear you and I love you and I'm so proud of you. And it's such a fucking superpower. I know for me, the longest time, it's so hard to see it as a superpower, but it really is, because 99% of people will never have that relationship with your body that you have. So that's something I'm really proud of in my life. It's allowed me to get in the strongest shape of my life and to really be able to like physically test my own vitality, which has been fun. So that was kind of a roundabout way of taking you through my timeline, but I really recommend going through like boom, 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 month by month, what the heck happened, and then reflecting and looking at, what are the biggest lessons that have happened. And for me, when I look back at the version of myself from a year ago, I was about to go into an identity crisis. Last fall, I definitely had my own little mini identity crisis of like, who am I and what do I want and what drives me? I was about to go into an identity crisis. I think I was still feeling really up in the air around who I was and what I had to contribute to the world. And, if I've learned anything throughout this work of purpose, I think there are layers to your purpose, and you can understand what it is that you're here to do in this world. But then over time, it gets refined and it gets refined, and you start to pull out your specific message and the people that you're here for, and it evolves. And I think last year was me kind of in that, I want to say floundering, but not really floundering, because I knew who the fuck I was. I knew what I wanted to do, but there was still this part of me that was like, it hasn't landed yet. Like my specific genius and my specific mission, I feel like there's a deeper layer that hasn't fully landed yet. And also being in the middle of Connecticut, I was about to go through this whole, I think, oh my gosh, this is what it was. Last summer, I was in this super uber relaxed state where I was like, I don't even know what drives me anymore. I wasn't feeling connected to money being a driver. I wasn't feeling connected to like having these huge milestones be a driver. So I was like, I'm so relaxed in my life. We have this beautiful house. I'm in a relationship with Nolan. I have this business. Like, what drives me anymore? And I was really in the process of that. And I think I felt this identity crisis looming again around like the heightened exploration of what actually drives me in this world. That happened throughout kind of the fall and into the winter. But I felt that looming. And if I could go back in time and tell myself anything, it's like, homegirl, you feel like you're about to lose a part of yourself. But in actuality, When you let yourself move through all of this and tumble through the emotions that are arising, all it is an ego death to allow you to welcome in the next side of yourself and more of yourself than you could have ever imagined. I am so much more of a dynamic woman than I ever have before in my life. And I can't wait to become even more dynamic in how I approach my relationship and being able to support Nolan and also to support my own mission, dynamic in how I see my role as a woman in this world, not only in my career, but then also in, my home and my life and my relationships. And dynamic in just what I base my power in. I thought that I was going to lose myself by questioning, where does my motivation come from? Like, am I really this independent boss babe and all of this stuff, Because I think for years, my identity was so tied up in the fact that I was like, I'm a boss and I run my business and I'm independent and I have my own apartment and I do my own things. And like, I am creating this life for myself and I am not settling. I'm not sacrificing. It's my vision or bust. Like very, very me focused. And of course to serve other people. But that was my security blanket of like, this is my identity as a woman in this world. And I think this past year, I've really awakened to there are so many different facets of myself. There's the facet of myself that's an incredible partner. There's a facet of myself that is a fucking phenomenal businesswoman. There's the facet of myself that is deep and emotional and sometimes just wants to be in her feels every single day. There's a facet of myself that could honestly go outside and be with the trees for an entire day, leave my phone and be so freaking happy. There's a facet of myself that cannot help but create all of the time and just wants to go outside and create content and to serve other people. There's so many facets of myself. There's a facet of myself that wants to stay at home and cook my man breakfast and lunch and take care of our house. Like there's so many facets of myself. And I was so afraid of losing myself by opening myself up to the idea that I was more than just my identity that I clung to within my business and being this boss babe. And I was so afraid of that, but I didn't realize that I was just gaining more because I look at my life now and I feel like this past year has really been the process of seeing my own power through that. Through opening and not clinging. It's like, well, we have nothing to lose. Like, let's just see ourselves for who we are. And seeing my own power such that now I can actually own it, not from this false sense of this is my power because it has to be my power and I'm fighting for my fucking survival all the time, but from this sense of this is my power because I've accepted so many different sides of myself and therefore I feel my power that's connected with my soul. I feel my power that's connected with my deepest heart and my deepest truth, rather than this idea of who I think I should be, even if it sounds beautiful and perfect on paper, like deeper than my identity. And I know that this will be something that I will continue to unfold for the rest of my life as more roles come into my life, as hopefully I become a mom one day. I'm going to continue going through that entire process, this identity shape shifting. And if there's one thing that I want to hold on to, it's every single time I feel like I'm at that ledge and I'm about to jump and I feel like I'm going to lose everything is actually when I'm going to gain the most. And it's so hard for me to see it in the moment sometimes, but it's really just the process of ego death. And the more patience I can have with myself, the more patience of just like rooting in, digging my heels in and saying, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving you. I am not abandoning you. I'm not going into my mind. I'm staying here. I'm being in my heart and I'm allowing this to unfold in front of me. That's what I want to take with me. And also to recognize that kind of along similar lines, a vision that's held by two or more people is the strongest vision. So while before I was so, gung-ho on creating my own vision within my own life, one thing that Nolan has been such a powerful reflector on is, and he's always held that he wants to create with me, is what happens when two people come together to create a life together and what that looks like. And again, it was one of those things where I felt like I was losing my sense of identity and self and all of this. If I just opened up to the fact that we could create something together and create a life together, like it's so silly in hindsight. It is so cute that my mind had such a hard time with it because it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful. But there is a catalyst effect that happens when two or more people hold a vision. And so you can let people into that and share your vision with others and open to the fact that your vision and what you have on paper might not be the only way. And in fact, God might have something way better in store for you. That if you were to just take off your blinders for a hot second and look at the opportunities that are placed right directly in front of you, and you say yes to those ones that pull on your heartstrings, you'll be able to see that over time, it's the or better that always drops in. And I think that's something that I want to continue in this next year is sharing my vision with other people and allowing myself to collaborate with others and to create not just with myself for myself in this sort of survival mode, but to create for the collective, and to do that in community, which is beautiful. And the last thing that I would say to myself a year ago today, and that I want to bring into this year moving forward, is that there is a difference between accepting support and surrendering into being supported and collapsing into victim. And this is kind of a personal one for me where I noticed that no matter what I called into my life, whether it was the most incredible thing or whether it was a really challenging thing, there was always this part of my body that wanted to collapse into it, collapse into being overwhelmed by it, collapse into stress, collapse into I can't handle this on a low level that was very unconscious. And I thought that that was my way of getting my needs met, that if I was stressed and then asking for support from being super stressed, that was, letting people in. That's not really asking for support. That's just asking to be protected and to be saved from basically my own misery, which that sounds super deep and intense, but y'all who are high performers and are in this work, you can understand, and there's nothing wrong. It was so much easier for me to create this entire story around why I needed saving in my own brain than it was to powerfully stand in an instance and say, I can handle anything. I can handle any expansion of my capacity. I can handle any challenge that comes my way. I can handle also the good that comes my way and the success that comes my way. I can handle it. Of course I can handle it, but I don't have to handle it completely on my own. And I can ask for support. That's different than standing in it and getting overwhelmed and then being like, I need somebody to save me and help me. And that's just a very subtle pattern that I noticed that I'm excited to continue to evolve this year of like, what does it feel like to stand in the fire and to know I am safe no matter what happens? Just because I'm on the leading edge of my life and I'm constantly bringing things in new doesn't mean that I can't handle it. Like the very fact that they're in my life means that I can handle anything. And to me, I really feel like that's going to be the key of just the rapid growth that I feel coming for this entire year and that I'm calling in for this entire year. Because y'all, next part, so beautifully transitioning into the next part of all of this is intention of what do I intend for this next year? And part of what I intend is rapid accelerated growth. And I say this very intentionally because if I know one thing in my own spiritual and intuitive process is that you can ask for your timeline to be sped up. And you can ask for it to come quicker. But if you ask for it to come quicker, that means the light comes quicker and also the challenge comes quicker. And I think for a long time, I shielded myself from that because I was like, I can't handle the challenge that comes from my own growth and all of the things that I want in my life. Like I started to feel that I think early on within my business, once I had really brought in everything that I had desired and then realized that, oh, you also will call in challenge and things that initiate you into the next level of your leadership. It was intense. And so I was like, no more of that. Let's slow it down for a second. Let's deepen. Let's stabilize, which to me is so beautiful. But this year moving forward, I'm like, bring it on, life. Like I can handle anything. Let's freaking go. I want to test myself. I want to see how awesome things can actually get and to create that very intentionally. So that's one of the things that I am calling into this year. Another is, as I said before, I think, last year for me was really seeing my own power. And this year for me is owning my own power and owning that power of myself where I know every single time I walk into a room, I add value to that space. Every single time I walk into a room, I have presence. I have a way to be able to serve people. Every opportunity that God brings to me, I will do good with it no matter what. I know that about myself. And I have the track record to prove it. If I look at my business, I have never felt so concrete in the fact that I have something incredible to offer to this world that hopefully creates a ripple effect for other people to then serve more people. That's all that I'm here for. Is like, if I can awaken more people and allow them to pop off and to be in their purpose, and then they can go awaken other people, to me, that's like the most incredible freaking thing. I think last year was a lot of me from the mind seeing my power of like, oh, look at how my mind thinks and look at how I pull things out in a different way than other other people pull things out. That's my genius. But now also bringing in power from my heart. And some of you might not know this, but I started in this work from a very spiritual place. And over time, I got to bring in my mind and to realize, hey, I don't have to, only do things with like, what is my intuition and what is my spiritual connection saying and all of this, but like I can also bring in this really powerful mind that is super, super helpful at problem solving and to be able to understand strategy and structure and creating systems and organization and all of this stuff. And so now I've brought in my mind this past year, which is so beautiful and incredible. But I've also kind of lost a little bit of that heart, that connection, that intuitive power that can kind of just know things without having to explain why I know them. And that really cuts straight through into truth, and that I can bring that back into my work. And that in fact, my entire life becomes way easier when I'm so connected to that voice of my own heart and to my connection with something so much greater than me. That makes everything simpler and more streamlined. So instead of thinking about how I'm going to get from point A to point F, I can actually just tap into my heart and see the exact clear way to get from point A to point F, but it might not be in the way that I had hoped or that my mind or my ego would hope. And so for me, this year is really about creating spaciousness for my own heart to breathe. So through my own practices, bringing back in my deep meditation practice, bringing back in journaling every single day without exception, bringing back in taking time and space for myself. And so intentionally creating that time by myself to actually tap into my own heart is truly going to be the source of my accelerated power, my accelerated growth for this entire year. The last piece that ties into this connection with my own heart is like no fucks given creativity. And I say that because I think me going into my mind, it's so easy for me to think about, well, how is this going to appear and who's going to understand this and is it going to get misunderstood? Like all of that crap that goes on. And I'm just humanizing myself. But yes, it still happens in my own mind. And for me, when I tap into my heart, I always know exactly what I want to say. I always know exactly how I want the words to come out. And it creates this like ease of like, fuck it, let's go. We don't have to overthink. Let's just get it out. Let's do it without this perfectionist mind coming in. And truly, that's the only way that I feel that I can actually have this accelerated growth and bring in this accelerated growth over and over and over is honestly by giving a few less fucks. So stay tuned for that. So those are the things I'm bringing into this next year. The last piece is to script it out. So I'm actually after this going to sit down and script out my entire year moving forward, what I want to see happen within my life. I won't bore you with the details, but then from there, I'm going to say it out loud and I'm actually going to share it with the people that I love closest around me. But I'll give you a little snippet of where I hope to see myself 1 year from now. I can't wait to look back on this. So where I hope to be a year from now, and honestly, I don't even say I hope to be a year from now, where I will be a year from now or something better, because that's how life works. And I can't wait to look back on this and just see what's happened. And most likely the universe is going to be like, oh girl, you thought it was going to be like this. You thought you were going to get to this place like this way, but actually plot twist, we gave it to you in a little bit of a different package. Which is so cute. I'm so open for that. But the intentions that I'm setting where I'm going to see myself a year from now is speaking up on stage. Mark my words, I will be speaking on stages about the power of purpose and finding your own specific genius through my own frameworks, the purpose code, and sharing that with other people so that they can start to awaken to who they're meant to be and how they're meant to serve in this world. So that's something that now that I've said it, I get to follow through on it. And I can't wait to see how that happens and how life brings that to me. But, a lot of people want to write books or have the most incredible podcast or create documentaries. So many different goals. For me, it's speaking. It's using my voice. It's using my own presence to be up on a stage. Again, that might be my Leo rising, baby. But I can't wait for that. I can't wait to see you there. So stay tuned for all of that. Second, I can't wait to cross the $500,000 mark in revenue within my business. We are inching towards that. And I can't wait to see that happen. Maybe there will be some extra jewelry on my hands, if y'all know what I'm saying. Wink, wink. Who knows? Okay, we're open to life. But yeah, that might be something. And I'm also looking forward to this September. We have a trip to Spain to see my grandmother. And some of y'all know that she moved to Madrid last year. and I have not gotten to see her in person for, I think, almost a year, if not over a year. And I cannot wait to go see her. And I hope that this year is also filled with more trips to go visit her in Spain, spending more time. If you know me, you know that she is incredibly important to me. All of my family is. But her and I definitely have a special connection. So, given the fact that I have some freedom and flexibility, I hope to get to do that more. So, that's what's up. I hope that something from this entire podcast has resonated with you. I am going to go log off and make myself some dinner this evening and reflect and script out the rest of my year. So, to recap, if you want to use this process for your own personal reflection, there are 4 different steps: timeline, reflect, intend, and script. TRIES is the acronym, so that you can use that for yourself in your own reflection. But I love you all. I have loved celebrating with you. Thank you for being here. And as always, if something has dropped in with you, go ahead, send me a DM on Instagram at Stephanie Elsperman. I love continuing the conversation with you guys over there. Truly, it makes my freaking day. There's a reason why I say this at the end of the podcast, because I love the messages. They're so beautiful and really create the sense of community around this entire podcast, which I hope you can feel. So I love you all. Mwah! Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next episode.